The twin suns of New Esperanza hung low in the sky, casting long, orange shadows across the dry, cracked plains. The wind carried dust in swirling eddies, painting the world in muted shades of brown and gold. Amidst this endless wasteland, a lone figure moved with quiet purpose. Nayeli, an Apache woman in her late 20s, walked barefoot over the hot sand, her eyes scanning the horizon with sharp precision. Nayeli had always been different from the other settlers. She spoke little and kept to herself, preferring the company of animals and the open land to the crowded settlement of Red Mesa, the main colony hub. While others focused on machinery and bureaucracy, Nayeli's knowledge of the land, the winds, and the hidden secrets of New Esperanza made her an unmatched tracker. Yet, her talents went unnoticed. People dismissed her. They saw her quiet ways as weakness, but Nayeli didn't mind. She had learned long ago that the world did not give respect freely. She walked on, listening to the whispers of the wind and the faint crunch of sand beneath her feet. Something unusual stirred her attention that morning. A faint hum, almost like electricity in the air, hummed beneath the heat. She knelt, tracing patterns in the dust with her fingers. Small, circular impressions dotted the ground, as if something had fallen from the sky. Her heart quickened. Something had crashed in the desert, far beyond the safety of Red Mesa. Most people would dismiss it, assuming it was debris or a meteorite. But Nayeli's instincts told her otherwise. The energy readings she sensed were different, foreign. She knew better than to ignore them. She returned to Red Mesa before anyone noticed her absence. The colony was busy as usual, merchants shouting over the din of machinery, settlers carrying supplies, and children laughing in the dusty streets. Nayeli walked past them silently, observing everything but speaking to no one. When she finally reached the colonial office, she found it in a frenzy. The settlement leaders were arguing about trade shipments and the rising cost of water extraction. Oblivious to the anomaly she had detected, Nayeli cleared her throat. "Something has fallen in the West Desert," she said calmly. The room went silent for a moment. Then laughter broke out. "What did you say, Nayeli?" One of the officials, Mr. Channing, sneered. "You mean a rock? Or are you imagining things again?" Nayeli's brown eyes met his. "It is not just a rock. I can feel its energy. It is different." "Different?" Channing scoffed, waving her off. "Listen. We have enough problems without chasing dust storms. Go tend to your animals or your plants. Leave the important work to the adults." The words stung. But Nayeli did not argue. She had grown used to being ignored. Instead, she turned silently and walked out of the office. The desert called to her. Something waited there, and she was determined to find it. As she prepared her pack, her thoughts were interrupted by a soft voice. "You're going out there alone?" Nayeli turned to see Emery, the quiet farmer who lived on the edge of the settlement. He was tall, wiry, with a gentle face and eyes that seemed to notice everything. Unlike the other settlers, he never mocked Nayeli. Instead, he observed her with a patience that was rare in Red Mesa. "Yes," she replied, "and I will find it. The others won't understand." Emery nodded slowly. "Then I'll come with you. I trust you know what you're doing." Nayeli blinked in surprise. No one had ever said that to her before. Not once. "You." "I do," he said simply. "And I can carry supplies. You might need it." Together, they left the settlement, moving into the harsh desert where the wind scoured the rocks and the sun beat down relentlessly. As they walked, Nayeli shared what she had observed. She showed Emery the impressions in the sand, traced the lines of energy she felt, and explained her theory. Something had fallen from the sky. Something not of human origin. Emery listened carefully, never interrupting. He asked questions, made notes, and occasionally glanced at the horizon with a thoughtful frown. Nayeli realized he was not just helping her carry supplies, he was thinking with her, analyzing the situation with a quiet intelligence that few could match. Hours passed, and the desert grew wilder. Strange rock formations jutted from the sand like jagged teeth. The air shimmered with heat, and distant dust storms threatened to engulf them. Yet Nayeli pressed on, following her instincts. Every step brought her closer to the unknown, and with every step, her anticipation grew. At midday, they paused at the edge of a small canyon. Nayeli knelt to examine the sand. Something had landed here recently. The impressions were deeper now, marked by a force greater than gravity. Tiny shards of glowing material sparkled faintly in the sunlight. Emery knelt beside her. "It's beautiful," he whispered, picking up a shard carefully. It pulsed faintly, warm to the touch. Nayeli nodded. "It is alive in a way. Not like any technology I've seen. I've only felt it once before. In the stories my grandmother told me, she called it starfire." Emery looked at her with a mixture of awe and caution. "Then we should be careful," they continued, descending into the canyon. The further they went, the stronger the energy became. It hummed in the air, vibrating faintly against their skin. Birds and small creatures had fled the area, leaving the canyon eerily silent except for the whispering wind. Then they saw it. A crater stretched across the canyon floor, its edges jagged and blackened. At the center lay a metallic object, partially buried in the sand. It shimmered with colors that did not belong to New Esperanza, shifting from green to violet to blue in an unearthly dance. The air around it seemed to distort, and the ground vibrated faintly beneath their feet. Nayeli approached slowly, her eyes wide. This is not a meteorite. It is something else. Something intelligent." Emery stood beside her, equally amazed but careful. "It's alien?" he asked, almost in disbelief. Nayeli nodded. "I think so. And if it is, we need to understand it before anyone else sees it." At that moment, a shadow fell across the canyon wall. Nayeli turned sharply, hand instinctively resting on her makeshift weapon, a carved staff reinforced with metal. A group of settlers on hover vehicles appeared, having followed a false lead. They shouted, demanding the object. Nayeli stepped in front of it, unwavering. "This is not yours," she said firmly. "It belongs to no one until we understand it." The settlers laughed, underestimating her because she was quiet, because she was different. But Nayeli did not flinch. Emery stepped beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder in silent support. Together, they faced the newcomers. For the first time in her life, Nayeli felt that perhaps she was not alone in seeing the world differently. Perhaps there were those who could recognize what others ignored, and as the desert wind swept through the canyon, carrying whispers of the unknown, she knew that her life, and the life of New Esperanza, was about to change forever. The twin suns sank lower, casting long shadows across the crater. Nayeli and Emery stood together, ready to face whatever secrets the fallen star held. The desert night settled over New Esperanza like a blanket of dark velvet. The twin moons rose, casting silver light across the jagged canyon. Nayeli and Emery had camped a short distance from the alien artifact. The glowing shards they had collected pulsed softly, filling the darkness with an otherworldly rhythm. Nayeli sat cross-legged near the fire, carefully arranging the shards in a circle. She could feel the faint hum of energy vibrating beneath the sand. Each shard seemed to tell a story, though she did not yet understand the language. Emery sat opposite her, sharpening a small tool he carried for repairs around his farm. Though quiet, he observed everything: the hum of the shards, the distant wind, the way Nayeli's hands moved over the objects. "You've never seen anything like this before," Emery said softly. "No," Nayeli admitted, her voice low. "But it feels alive. I think it is waiting for someone to wake it." Emery nodded, hesitant but curious. "You trust your instincts. That is why I followed you." Nayeli looked at him, surprised by the calm sincerity in his tone. Most people ignored her, or worse, mocked her. Emery had not. He had quietly stood by her, trusted her without question. It was a feeling she had rarely experienced, and it gave her strength. "We should rest," she said finally. Tomorrow, we will explore the crater. The night passed slowly. The desert was alive with sounds, soft winds that shifted the sand, distant calls of alien wildlife, and the hum of the shards. Nayeli remained alert even in sleep, her instincts keeping her aware of the world around her. Emery, on the other hand, slept deeply, a quiet presence beside her. At first light, they returned to the crater. The object lay at its center, half buried, shimmering with colors that seemed impossible. Nayeli approached carefully, touching its surface. The metal was smooth, warm, and vibrated faintly under her fingers. Emery watched her, unsure what to make of the strange machine. "Do you think it's dangerous?" he asked. Nayeli shook her head. "Not intentionally, but it is powerful. It could change everything, or destroy everything." She traced her fingers along strange symbols carved into the object. They glowed faintly where her touch lingered. Nayeli crouched and studied them, recognizing patterns that reminded her of her grandmother's teachings. Though she had never seen anything like this, there was a sense of familiarity, as if the artifact spoke in a language of nature itself. Emery stepped closer. "How do you know what it wants?" "I don't," Nayeli admitted. "I can only feel it. I think it responds to life, to the energy of those who approach with respect. That is why it called to me." Hours passed as Nayeli worked quietly, deciphering the symbols and experimenting with the glowing shards. Emery assisted, holding tools, recording observations, and cautiously moving pieces as she instructed. Together, they made progress. Slowly, the artifact's surface shifted, revealing a small compartment at its center. Inside was a core, a pulsing sphere of light, suspended without any visible support. "It's beautiful," Emery whispered, leaning closer. The light reflected in his wide eyes, giving him an almost ethereal glow. Nayeli nodded, her fingers hovering near the core. "Beautiful. Yes, but we must be careful. It is not a toy. It is alive. In a way, it can sense intention." As they studied it, the hum of the desert changed. A low, mechanical whir began in the distance. Nayeli tensed. "We are not alone," she said. From the edge of the canyon, hover vehicles emerged. Settlers from Red Mesa, led by the arrogant Channing, had followed them. Unlike before, they now carried tools and weapons, prepared to take the artifact by force. Nayeli stood, placing herself between the object and the intruders. "This is not yours," she said firmly, echoing her words from the previous day. Channing laughed, stepping forward. "You talk too much for a quiet girl. Hand it over. This belongs to the colony." Emery stepped beside Nayeli, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It belongs to no one yet," he said. His voice was calm, steady, unafraid. The settlers hesitated. They had expected Nayeli to run or tremble. They did not expect her to stand so confidently. Nor did they expect the farmer to support her. Nayeli's eyes glinted. "We will not let you take it. Not until we understand it." For a tense moment, the desert held its breath. Then, as if sensing the fear and greed in the intruders, the artifact pulsed brighter. The air shimmered, and the ground beneath the settlers quaked. Rocks lifted slightly from the sand, hovering for a moment before falling again. The settlers stumbled, unsure of what was happening. Emery grabbed Nayeli's arm. "We need to move," he said urgently. They ran toward a narrow passage at the edge of the canyon, the artifact pulsing in response to their motion. The settlers shouted, but they could not keep up. Nayeli led Emery through a twisting path, using her knowledge of the desert to outmaneuver the intruders. Hours later, they stopped at a hidden alcove. The desert stretched endlessly around them, but here it was quiet. Safe for now. Nayeli knelt near the artifact, examining the core again. The light pulsed rhythmically, as if it had absorbed the energy of the chase. "We can't let them follow us," Nayeli said. "They would destroy it, or themselves, if they tried to take it." Emery looked at her, admiration in his eyes. "You're incredible," he said softly. I've never met anyone who sees the world like you do. Nayeli blushed slightly, unused to praise. I am just paying attention. That is all. You do more than that, Emery replied. You understand. That is why this is here with us. The two worked through the night, experimenting carefully with the shards and the core. Nayeli's hands moved deftly, guided by instinct and intuition. Emery recorded every detail, offering suggestions and asking questions that helped Nayeli refine her understanding. Slowly, they realized that the artifact could manipulate energy, reshape small areas of the desert, and respond to their intentions. By dawn, they had achieved something remarkable. A small patch of desert near their alcove transformed. Sand became fertile soil. Small plants sprouted, and water pooled in a tiny hollow. It was a miniature oasis, evidence of the artifact's potential. Nayeli looked at Emery, eyes wide with wonder. We could change this world, she whispered. Not just survive, but truly live here. Emery smiled. And we'll do it together, he said. Quietly, carefully, like we always do. Their moment of triumph was interrupted by a distant rumble. Dust swirled on the horizon. More settlers were coming, this time with heavy equipment, determined to claim the artifact. Nayeli and Emery exchanged a glance. They knew the journey was just beginning, but for the first time, Nayeli did not feel alone. She had a companion who believed in her, who trusted her instincts, and who would face danger alongside her. And together, they were ready to confront the challenges ahead. The desert hummed with life, the artifact pulsed with energy, and the twin moons of New Esperanza shone down on a world that was about to change forever. The desert of New Esperanza stretched endlessly, but Nayeli and Emery moved with purpose. The artifact, now partially understood, pulsed softly in Emery's pack. The oasis they had created overnight was a small triumph, proof that the alien object could reshape life itself, but the celebration was brief. In the distance, a strange shimmer in the sky caught Nayeli's attention. It's coming, she said quietly. Emery squinted. What is it? Nayeli did not answer immediately. The shape was unlike any aircraft she had seen. It hovered, its edges glimmering with colors that shifted constantly. The alien probe, sensing the energy of the artifact, had arrived. Unlike the settlers, it did not make sound, but its presence carried a weight, as if the desert itself was bending around it. We need to move, Nayeli said. It's studying us. I can feel it. Together, they packed their supplies and began moving across the desert. Nayeli's instincts guided them to a narrow canyon hidden from view, a place where even the probe would have difficulty following. Emery kept pace, noting the subtle energy vibrations in the sand. The probe hovered above, scanning in silence, its surface reflecting the twin suns in kaleidoscopic patterns. Hours passed. The desert heat pressed down on them, and the wind carried sharp grains of sand against their skin. Yet, through the exhaustion, Nayeli remained alert. Every shadow, every gust of wind was a signal. She was learning to understand the artifact, the probe, and the desert all at once. Emery, though tired, trusted her instinctively. Suddenly, a loud rumble broke the quiet. Dust erupted from a distant ridge, revealing a convoy of hover vehicles carrying mercenaries hired by a corporate entity from another colony. Their leader, a tall woman with cold eyes and a sharp voice, called out, "We know it's here. Bring us the artifact." Nayeli's pulse quickened. She had expected threats from the settlers, but mercenaries were different. They were trained, ruthless, and driven by profit. "We can't let them get it," she whispered. Emery nodded. "We won't, but how do we stop them?" Nayeli scanned the terrain. The canyon they had entered offered some advantage: narrow passages, high cliffs, and natural choke points. She pointed to a path leading to a jagged rock formation. "This way, we can lead them into the canyon. It will slow them down." They moved swiftly, weaving through rocky outcrops. The mercenaries followed, their vehicles kicking up clouds of sand. Nayeli and Emery used every trick of the desert to stay ahead: hidden paths, sudden drops, and even the occasional false trail. The artifact pulsed in Emery's pack, responding to their fear and determination, but also guiding them in subtle ways. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the chase reached a critical point. The canyon narrowed, cliffs rising sharply on both sides. Nayeli stopped, listening to the hum of the artifact and the rumble of the pursuing vehicles. "Here," she said, "we can use the terrain. Emery, trust me." The first vehicle entered the narrow pass. Nayeli raised her hand, signaling Emery. With a subtle motion, the artifact emitted a pulse of energy. Rocks along the canyon walls vibrated and shifted, creating a temporary blockade. The first vehicle skidded to a stop, unable to pass. The second tried to follow, only to be trapped behind it. The mercenaries cursed and fired weapons, but the rocks shielded Nayeli and Emery. The canyon seemed to respond to their intentions. The artifact's energy resonated with Nayeli's focus, subtly moving stones and creating barriers. The mercenaries were skilled, but the desert itself was working against them. "You're amazing," Emery said in awe. "How do you do this?" Nayeli shook her head. "I don't do it alone. The artifact, it listens. But it needs a guide. Someone who respects it, not someone who wants to take it." The mercenaries, frustrated and trapped, began to retreat temporarily. Nayeli and Emery used the opportunity to move further into the canyon, deeper into a hidden valley. Here, the air was cooler, and a small stream ran through the rocks, a secret oasis that had escaped notice for centuries. They stopped to rest and assess their situation. "We need a plan," Emery said. "The probe is still out there, and they will come back with reinforcements." Nayeli nodded. "We need to understand the artifact more. It has power. Yes, but it is not just a weapon. It can create, sustain, and heal. If we can control it safely, we can protect ourselves, and even the desert." Emery looked at her. "Do you think it can really help people?" "I know it can," Nayeli said. "If used wisely, it could transform New Esperanza, but it cannot fall into the wrong hands." Over the next day, they experimented carefully. Nayeli guided Emery in placing shards near the artifact's core, observing how the pulses of energy moved. Slowly, they discovered that the artifact responded not only to touch, but also to intention. A gentle, deliberate thought could reshape the desert. Fear or aggression caused it to retreat, dim, or resist. "This is incredible," Emery said. He carefully placed a shard near the core, and a small patch of barren ground bloomed with strange, glowing plants. "Look, life. In the middle of the desert." Nayeli smiled. "Yes, and it's only the beginning. But we must be careful. Every action has a consequence." Their moment of discovery was interrupted by a soft, high-pitched hum in the sky. Nayeli looked up. The alien probe had returned, moving silently above the canyon. Its colors shifted rapidly, scanning the terrain. It had been observing, learning from their actions. Nayeli felt the hum against her skin, a vibration she recognized now as communication. The probe was curious, not hostile. Yet, Emery stepped close. "What do we do?" "We show it respect," Nayeli said. "Not fear, not aggression. Just understanding." Nayeli approached the probe cautiously, holding out a hand. The artifact pulsed in her pack, harmonizing with the probe's energy. Slowly, the probe descended, hovering mere feet above the ground. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, colors shifting softly. Nayeli spoke softly, words that were part instinct, part feeling. The probe responded, its vibrations aligning with the artifact's pulses. Emery watched, amazed. "It's listening to you." "Yes," Nayeli said. "And it trusts me. A little." The realization filled her with cautious optimism. The probe was not a weapon, but a sentinel. It had been sent to monitor the artifact, and now it recognized that Nayeli and Emery were not threats. For the first time, she felt a sense of partnership not just with Emery, but with the alien intelligence itself. But the desert was never truly quiet. In the distance, the hum of engines grew louder. The mercenaries were returning, this time in greater numbers. Nayeli and Emery exchanged a glance. The challenge was far from over. But they were ready. They had knowledge, allies both human and alien, and the courage to face what came next. Together, they prepared for the confrontation. Nayeli focused on controlling the artifact, while Emery studied the terrain, ready to defend their small oasis. The desert seemed to hold its breath, waiting, and as the sun set, casting the valley in shadow, Nayeli realized that New Esperanza was no longer just a frontier world. It was a stage where human courage, wisdom, and ingenuity could shine brighter than any technology or weapon. The twin moons rose once again, silver light bathing the canyon. Nayeli and Emery stood side by side, ready for whatever unseen forces the night might bring. The probe hovered above, its colors shimmering in quiet acknowledgement. And somewhere, beyond the horizon, the mercenaries advanced, unaware that the true strength of humanity lay not in firepower, but in cleverness, courage, and a quiet bond between two people who refused to be ignored. The morning sun rose over the hidden valley, painting the rocky cliffs in soft shades of orange and gold. Nayeli and Emery stood at the edge of their oasis, watching as the alien probe hovered silently above, its shifting colors reflecting the early light. The desert beyond stretched endlessly, barren and unforgiving. But here, life was beginning to bloom, thanks to the artifact. Nayeli knelt near the core, carefully adjusting the shards that had begun to align with its pulses. Each shard emitted a gentle glow, and the artifact hummed in response, vibrating softly through the sand. The energy was different now, stronger, more responsive. Nayeli could feel it in her bones, an almost human awareness within the object itself. "This is incredible," Emery said, kneeling beside her. "We've never seen anything like this." "Yes," Nayeli said softly, her eyes fixed on the pulsing sphere. "But we are only scratching the surface. It is more than a machine. It is a seed for the land, for life itself." Emery reached out, touching one of the glowing shards. "You think it can change the planet?" Nayeli nodded. "It can transform New Esperanza. But it is dangerous if used incorrectly. It responds to intention, not commands. If someone approaches with greed or anger, it will resist." They spent the morning experimenting, carefully manipulating the shards to produce small patches of fertile soil. Plants sprouted, water pooled in hollows, and tiny creatures cautiously returned to the newly thriving oasis. Each success filled them with wonder and determination. The artifact was no longer just a mystery, it was a tool, a hope for the future. But the peace was fragile. From the ridge above, the faint sound of engines warned them that the mercenaries had returned. Nayeli's pulse quickened. They had underestimated her before. But now, she knew they would not give up easily. The mercenaries wanted the artifact, and they would take it by force if necessary. "We need a plan," Nayeli said. She scanned the terrain, considering every advantage the valley offered. "We can't fight them head-on. But we can use the artifact, and we can use the land." Emery nodded, his expression serious. "I trust you. Tell me what to do." "I trust you." Nayeli took a deep breath. "We need to awaken the artifact fully. It will respond to our intentions. But only if we work together. I will guide it, and you will support me. Focus on the land, on the protection of life, not on attacking them." Together, they began the process. Nayeli arranged the shards in a precise pattern, drawing on the knowledge of energy flow she had instinctively understood. Emery mirrored her movements, his hands steady, as he helped adjust the artifact's alignment. Slowly, the core pulsed brighter, sending waves of energy through the valley. The desert responded. Rocks shifted. Small plants grew instantly, and the sand itself seemed to ripple in response to the artifact's hum. From above, the mercenaries approached cautiously, unsure of what they were seeing. Rocks levitated, forming barriers and pathways, while the ground beneath their vehicles buckled, slowing their advance. Nayeli and Emery moved with the artifact, guiding its energy with quiet precision. They were no longer just two humans in the desert, they were a force shaping the land itself. One of the mercenaries, braver than the others, fired a weapon toward Nayeli. The artifact responded instantly. A wave of energy swept across the canyon floor, creating a barrier of rock and sand that blocked the attack. The mercenary stumbled back, shaken and unprepared for the desert's sudden defense. Emery glanced at Nayeli, eyes wide. "It's protecting us." "Yes," Nayeli said, her voice calm but firm. "But it is also fragile. If we misuse it, we could destroy everything we've created." They continued to manipulate the artifact, using it to guide the flow of life in the valley. The mercenaries tried to advance, but each step was met with subtle resistance from the land itself. Rocks shifted, sand rose, and the artifact's energy flowed like a protective river around Nayeli and Emery. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense, it was a guardian, responding to their intentions and their connection to life. Hours passed. The mercenaries, frustrated and exhausted, eventually retreated, unable to overcome the valley's defenses. Nayeli and Emery breathed a quiet sigh of relief. The threat was not gone, but they had proven that their understanding and respect for the artifact could outmatch brute force. With the immediate danger past, Nayeli turned her attention fully to the artifact. She traced her fingers along the core, feeling its energy pulse through her. The symbols carved into its surface glowed brightly, forming patterns she now understood instinctively. The artifact was not just a machine, it was a network, a system designed to nurture and create. Emery watched her silently, awestruck. "You understand it," he said softly. "I am beginning to," Nayeli replied. "It responds to life, to intention, to balance. It can reshape the world, but only if guided wisely." As they worked, Nayeli realized something profound. The artifact was teaching her, and in turn, she could teach others. New Esperanza did not have to remain a harsh, barren world. With the artifact's power, humanity could thrive, but only if they learned to respect the land and the life within it. By evening, the valley had transformed. The oasis had grown larger. Small streams flowed steadily, and plants of various kinds covered the previously barren ground. Creatures cautiously returned, drawn by the new life. Nayeli and Emery stood at the edge, watching the results of their efforts. "This is just the beginning," Nayeli said. "We can expand, restore, and protect. But we must remain careful. The mercenaries will return, and there are others who might misuse this power." Emery nodded. "Then we prepare." Together. That night, as they rested near the glowing artifact, Nayeli thought about her grandmother's stories, the lessons of the land, and the wisdom passed down through generations. She realized that her destiny had been shaped not by the dismissive settlers or the harsh desert, but by her own knowledge, courage, and the quiet trust of a single companion. Emery, sitting beside her, finally broke the silence. "You know, I never thought a quiet tracker and a simple farmer could change the fate of a planet." Nayeli smiled faintly. "We are not just any humans. We see, we understand, and we act wisely. That is what makes us human." The artifact pulsed in response. A gentle, rhythmic glow that seemed to acknowledge her words. Nayeli felt a deep connection to it. A bond that went beyond understanding. It was as if the artifact recognized her intentions, her respect for life, and her determination to protect it. As the twin moons rose over the valley, Nayeli knew that their journey was far from over. The artifact held immense potential, but it also carried risks. Others would come, driven by greed or fear. Yet, she was no longer the ignored Apache woman of Red Mesa. She was a guide, a protector, and a force that could shape destiny itself. Emery reached out, taking her hand gently. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we face it together." Nayeli squeezed his hand, a rare smile touching her lips. "Together," she agreed. In the quiet of the desert night, the valley thrummed with life and energy. The artifact's glow illuminated the transformed land, a symbol of hope and possibility. Nayeli and Emery, side by side, had awakened not only the artifact, but their own destinies. And in that moment, they understood that the true power of New Esperanza lay not in the object itself, but in the courage, wisdom, and unity of the humans who wielded it wisely. The sun rose slowly over New Esperanza, casting warm light over the transformed valley. The oasis had grown into a flourishing haven of life, with streams winding through green fields and alien plants shimmering with vibrant colors. Birds and small creatures moved freely, drawn to the safety and abundance of the land. At the heart of it all pulsed the alien artifact, glowing softly, a silent testament to the power of balance and respect. Nayeli stood at the edge of the oasis, her eyes scanning the horizon. For the first time in her life, she felt a sense of recognition, not from the dismissive settlers or the greedy mercenaries, but from the land itself. Every plant, every ripple of water, every hum of the artifact affirmed that she had found her purpose. Emery joined her, carrying supplies for the day. "You've done it," he said quietly, a soft smile on his face. "The desert. It's alive again." Nayeli shook her head slightly, humility in her expression. "We've done it. The artifact guided us, and the land helped. But yes, it is ours to protect now." The peace of the valley was short-lived. From the distant horizon, dust and noise signaled the approach of new threats. The mercenaries had regrouped, bringing more advanced vehicles and heavy machinery. This time, they were determined to take the artifact at any cost. Nayeli and Emery prepared, knowing that they could not rely solely on the artifact's defensive abilities. Nayeli took a deep breath. "Remember, Emery, we do not fight with anger or fear. We fight with understanding, with strategy, and with the land itself. The artifact will respond if we remain calm and focused." Emery nodded, his hands steady as he positioned himself beside her. "I trust you. Let's do this." As the mercenaries entered the valley, the artifact pulsed in response, sending waves of energy across the land. Rocks shifted into natural barriers, streams rose slightly to redirect their vehicles, and plants seemed to grow rapidly, creating obstacles. The mercenaries were skilled, but the valley itself had become a maze, and they struggled to advance. Nayeli guided the artifact's energy with precise movements. She extended her hands over the core, sending pulses of life through the valley. The alien machine responded instantly, amplifying her intentions. Small mounds of earth rose like walls, streams shifted direction, and thick vines sprouted from the ground to block the mercenaries' path. Every action was deliberate, controlled, and careful. Emery assisted, using his knowledge of terrain and human movement to predict where the mercenaries would go. Together, they were a team, two humans guiding an alien force, turning the desert itself into a protector. The mercenaries fired weapons, but the artifact created shields of rock and sand, absorbing the impact without harming the land or its defenders. Hours passed in tense silence, punctuated by the noise of the intruders. Nayeli focused on the core, feeling the pulse of the artifact align with her heartbeat. Every moment of doubt or fear weakened the energy. Every calm, deliberate thought strengthened it. She realized that the artifact's true power came not from control, but from harmony with its environment and those who respected it. As the sun reached its zenith, Nayeli made a decision. The mercenaries were persistent, but their greed and aggression made them predictable. She could use the artifact to create a permanent barrier, one that would protect the valley and the life within it, without harming anyone unnecessarily. "Emery," she said, her voice firm, "help me focus. We're going to reshape this valley, not to attack, but to protect. Can you do that?" "I can," he replied without hesitation. Together, they raised their hands above the core. Nayeli closed her eyes, centering her thoughts on protection, growth, and life. Emery mirrored her actions, channeling his focus on safety and balance. The artifact pulsed brighter than ever, sending waves of energy across the valley. Rocks rose, streams redirected, and dense vegetation formed an impenetrable barrier around the oasis. The mercenaries' vehicles ground to a halt, unable to penetrate the living walls. The mercenaries shouted and fired weapons, but the valley itself seemed alive, a silent guardian preventing them from advancing further. Frustration and fear filled their eyes, and they finally realized that brute force would not succeed here. One by one, they retreated, their machines kicking up clouds of dust as they fled back toward the horizon. Nayeli opened her eyes and exhaled slowly. The valley was safe. The artifact pulsed gently, as if acknowledging her actions and the unity between humans and the land. Emery smiled, relief and pride shining in his eyes. "We did it," he said softly. "Yes," Nayeli replied. "And now, we have a chance to rebuild not just this valley, but all of New Esperanza." Over the following weeks, Nayeli and Emery worked tirelessly. The artifact's energy allowed them to expand the oasis, creating fertile fields, streams, and forests across the surrounding desert. Small settlements of humans began to thrive near the transformed land, learning from Nayeli's guidance. She shared her knowledge of the artifact carefully, emphasizing respect, balance, and intention. Word spread throughout the colony of Red Mesa. The settlers who had once ignored Nayeli came to see her in a new light. Her quiet strength, intelligence, and courage had shaped the land itself. People sought her guidance, not only to survive, but to live in harmony with New Esperanza. The twin moons rose one night as Nayeli and Emery stood atop a hill, overlooking the valley. The streams sparkled, forests swayed gently in the wind, and the artifact pulsed softly at the center of it all. Nayeli felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had been ignored for so long, underestimated and dismissed. But she had persevered. She had discovered her destiny, and in doing so, she had changed the fate of the planet. Emery stood beside her, quiet and steady as always. "You've done more than I ever imagined," he said. Nayeli smiled faintly. "We've done it together. You believed in me when no one else did. That is why this worked." The artifact pulsed again, almost like a heartbeat. Nayeli reached out and placed her hand on it. The energy flowed through her, a connection deeper than anything she had ever experienced. She realized that the artifact was not just a tool, it was a living part of New Esperanza, responding to those who approached with wisdom and care. As they stood together, Nayeli thought about the lessons she had learned. That courage was not loud, that strength came from understanding and patience, and that even those who were ignored could change the world. Her quiet voice had become a force, shaping the destiny of humans, the desert, and the alien artifact. Over time, New Esperanza transformed into a thriving world. Humans learned to live with the land, guided by Nayeli's teachings. The artifact remained at the heart of the valley, a symbol of balance and hope, its energy sustaining life and growth. Settlers who had once mocked or ignored Nayeli now looked to her as a leader, respecting her wisdom and her quiet determination. Emery remained by her side, the quiet farmer who had trusted her instincts from the beginning. Together, they explored the possibilities of the artifact, carefully expanding the reach of life across the planet. Nayeli's name became known throughout the colonies, not as a curiosity or an outsider, but as a visionary, a protector of life, and a guide for humanity. One evening, as the twin moons rose once more, Nayeli stood at the edge of the transformed valley. She watched the streams, forests, and fields shimmering under the moonlight. The artifact pulsed gently at the center, a constant reminder of the power of respect, courage, and understanding. Emery approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You changed everything," he said softly. Nayeli nodded. "No. We changed everything. Humanity, the land, the artifact. It all comes together when we act wisely. That is the real power." The wind carried the hum of the artifact across the valley. Nayeli closed her eyes, feeling the energy of New Esperanza flowing through her. The life she had nurtured, and the future she would continue to protect. She knew challenges would come again, but she was ready. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, truly powerful, not because of weapons or authority, but because of courage, wisdom, and the quiet determination to do what was right. And as the moons reflected in the waters of the oasis, Nayeli realized that the future was no longer uncertain. She had awakened her destiny. And in doing so, she had created a new horizon, one where humans and the land could thrive together, guided by respect, understanding, and hope. The desert, once harsh and unyielding, had become a testament to what humanity could achieve when it listened, learned, and acted with care. Nayeli smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. The world had changed, and she had changed with it. A new era had begun, not just for her, but for all of New Esperanza.